Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly makes it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X. Also, remember that we're now on TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch a moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are now available on demand. Today, we have a great show lined up. My friend Rich Valdes, host of This is America with Rich Valdes, is going to be stopping by. He is the voice of Hispanic Conservatives, a producer and regular guest host of the nationally syndicated Mark Levine Show. Today, Rich is here to chat with me about the latest in vaccine mandates and what that means for New Yorkers. He'll also enlighten us on what he predicts will play out between Russia and the Ukraine as Biden and Putin enter heavy discussions. In My Digital World, brought to us by the Tempus.network, we are joined by Barry Finklestein, head of North American Business Development at Algorand, and Matthew Green, CTO of the OG2D Corporation. Today, we are chatting NFTs, film, cryptocurrency, and how Algorand is making their mark. In the scandal segment with Imran Ansari of Idana Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law right here in NYC, we're going to be covering the Jussie Smollett case and all it entails. Sex, drugs, and lies. We sort of knew this was coming. Jussie took the stand in his own defense at the criminal trial over whether he staged a hoax hate crime involving a noose. Yep. The testimony was the culmination of a saga that began with Smollett's Trump-era call for help after he claimed MAGA goons targeted him, only for cops to turn the tables on the Empire Star and say he made it all up. Please note that scandal segment was pre-recorded earlier this week as our legal expert and contributor Imran Ansari had court duties. In our famous culinary and wine segment this week, we are featuring Peter Guimaraes, managing partner at Bice Cucina Restaurant Group. He's coming on in just a few to discuss NYC's surviving restaurants, how they are at the best they've ever been, and what his magic formula for success is. Now, before I bring on our digital world guests, I wanted to chat Roe versus Wade with an update on abortion news. Now, last week's Supreme Court arguments on a Mississippi abortion law raised the prospect of a return to a time half a century ago when the procedure was illegal across most of the United States, and women tried to end pregnancies on their own or sought back alley abortions. Now, if the court decides to reverse or weaken the landmark Roe versus Wade ruling, it will usher a very different era. Likely, abortion would remain legal in more than half of the states, but not in a wide portion of the Midwest and the South. Legislatures in 22 states would almost certainly move to ban or substantially restrict access to abortion. In effect, the U.S. without Roe would look very different for different people. For women in democratic states and women elsewhere who have the means to travel to a clinic, say, abortion would still be accessible. For poor women in many Republican states, traveling to other states for in-clinic abortions could be prohibitive, challenging, to say the least. Something to think about, my friends, something to think about. We'll be right back with this My Digital World segment featuring Algorand's very own Barry Finklestein and OG2D's Matthew Green. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, welcoming back to My Digital World, we have an incredible segment coming up. It's brought to us by Tempus.network, a Burkan World project. We have Barry Finklestein, head of North American Business Development at Algorand. Also joining us is Matthew Green, CTO of OG2D, the original Two Digital Corporation. Now, if you go to OG2D.com, you're going to discover a platform that connects passionate fans with 100% authenticated and original NFT collectibles in art, entertainment, and memorabilia. One can buy, sell, and trade 100% original authenticated NFT collectibles within a unified and safe ecosystem. Today, we're going to be chatting NFTs, film, cryptocurrency and how Algorand is making their mark. Now, before I bring on my panel of experts, let's chat carbon neutral NFTs. Set the tone. This is what makes crypto art so environmentally unfriendly. Over its life cycle, the average NFT will accrue a stunning footprint of 211 kilograms of CO2. Okay, that's equivalent to driving 513 miles in a typical US gasoline-powered car. But since they are built on Algorand, each NFT created on OG2D offsets virtually untraceable emissions. And this is key. For those unfamiliar, Algorand is a decentralized blockchain technology network with its native currency being known as Algo, ALGO. And according to CoinMarket, Algorand is the 34th largest cryptocurrency in terms of market cap, meaning the total value of all the coins or tokens on the network. Now, they are fast, simple, and very cost effective. They offer highly competitive fees of around 10 cents per NFT minted. Leading blockchains, note, can cost up to $1,000. Now, it's also powered by some of the fastest transaction times, and this is very important in where we're headed today in the digital process. Experts predict that NFT will shape the future of the entertainment industry, giving different perspectives to blockchain investments and contributions. Here to dive right into this conversation are my panel of experts. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Barry, I'm going to start. Actually, you know what? Let's start with Matt, since we'll go to the Beyond the Border, which is Berkane World's first media division project, and it's the first crypto-funded documentary about cultural inclusion. Just a quick overview for our listeners. It's the story of two Europeans who spent a few weeks on a vacation in Afghanistan with the aim of giving groups of girls and boys as many snowboards as possible so that by practicing a sport, they can continue to think and hope for a better future. The premise of the documentary is inclusion, which is very timely. Now, OG2D seems to be ahead of the curve here. What role will they be playing in taking Berkane's documentary Beyond the Border to the next tech level with NFTs?
I think we're going off the theme of the documentary itself, which is, I mean, the documentary represents cultural inclusion. And I think that NFTs in many aspects can represent inclusion on a global scale. Like unlike a specific art piece at an art gallery where you have to, that art gallery at a certain time, doing a certain thing in a certain place, the opportunity to tap into these NFTs, especially Beyond the Border, being a documentary based in Afghanistan, that you have the ability to tap into a global world as long as you have internet connection. And so OG2D in partnership with Birkin to be able to create this NFT allows the global world to be able to play a role in achieving this and in getting that connection to a piece of something that they feel included in. And that's what this is about, a cultural inclusion and taking that next step to allow global inclusion for people to participate in.
Love it. Love it. I love how it's all coming together. Barry, I'm going to throw this one to you. NFTs are typically interoperable. This means that they can be exchanged or traded across different, and this is more for advanced content, but DLTs with relative ease. DLTs, guys, for those of you that are just listening, distributed ledger technology is a digital system for recording the transaction of assets in which the transactions and their details are recorded in multiple places at the same time. Now, Barry, Algorand's robust underlying technology ensures this interoperability, very user-friendly among developers, playing a very pivotal role in why many cryptocurrency aficionados anticipate it overtaking Ethereum as the leading blockchain network. Can you go into detail in terms of, so while Ethereum may have a first mover advantage, it may end up playing catch up with Algorand, and you are at the forefront of this movement. How does Algorand manage to be so competitive in pricing?
So you hit the nail proverbially on the head, Zen, which is they do have a first mover advantage. They were around for 6 odd years before Algorand even launched its mainnet, which is now only 2 years old. If you look at the growth of where Algorand is now after 2 years versus where Ethereum was after 2 years, it's pretty dramatically different. We significantly greater growth. We had the luxury of being able to look at all the things that had been developed both on the Ethereum network and other smart contract platforms to decipher out which were the good points, which were the bad points, and how to improve on the things that were problematic. And the first and foremost thing to do is to know that Algorand is built by a team of scientists led by Silvio Macaulay, the Turing Award winner, which is the Nobel Prize of Computer Science, and his team of MIT students. And we have a company that has 50, 60 different engineers, computer scientists, mathematicians, and cryptographers that are constantly upgrading the system. That system is run on a pure proof of stake methodology, and that pure proof of stake methodology allows us to run incredibly efficiently. Not only is our speed, to give you basis of comparison, where we run at block propagation in under 4.5 seconds per block, which compares to something in the neighborhood of 15 odd minutes in the case of Ethereum. And if you want to really be safe about finality, they're probably closer to 30 minutes to an hour. The number of transactions we can handle per second, which runs at 1,300 transactions per second now, will soon be 10,000, and then going to 45,000 in short order, all while we reduce the block propagation time. And perhaps even more importantly, it's completely secure in that we cannot fork. It's been systematically proven and third-party verified that the Algorand system protocol cannot fork. Now think about how important that is for an NFT. Imagine if you were buying, let's just say, the Mona Lisa through an NFT, and more than one person thought that they owned it, and it forked, and it could be multiple forks. But even if it was just one fork, you'd have a stream of people who all think that they own the Mona Lisa, when in fact they do not at all. Well, that is a death knell for the NFT marketplace. So we're fast, we're efficient, we're incredibly scalable, we cannot fork, we have instant finality, and from a cost perspective, every transaction on the Algorand network runs at 0.001 algos, which right now is roughly 0.002 cents.
Really competitive.
So it's virtually nothing. And I'll give you a wonderful example. Back a few months back, the SIAE, which is the Italian rights organization for artists, took 100,000 artists, which are on their network. Each one has around 40 different streams of royalty revenues. They NFT'd each and every one of those streams. A total of 4.2 million NFTs were created. Those were created within 5 hours on Algorand. It probably would have taken upwards of 5 odd months to do it on Ethereum. The cost at the time of doing it on Ethereum at that price on that day would have been in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 million to do that. To do it on Algorand, it costs under $10,000.
That's some revolutionary stuff that you got on your hands there, Barry.
Take all that, Zen, and then add to the point that you brought in before, that we run ourselves not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative. We always buy carbon offsets to the extent that we need to and can. We've planted, literally at this point, millions of trees around the world to that end, and the like. So we take all this environmentally and ecologically thinking very seriously.
Very seriously, yeah. And it's also good to point out that Algorand is built to house a scalable DeFi and NFT DApp ecosystem. And I'm going to bring this up because a lot of our users are asking these advanced questions. And DApp is an application built on decentralized network that combines a smart contract and a front-end user interface, which makes everything very vanilla, which people love. But I don't want to run out of time, so I'm going to throw this one back to Matthew. And it's going to go back to the minting process. Now, NFTs, in what we're talking about, that's your wheelhouse. Let's chat minting and costs. Now, before anything, each individual NFT needs to be minted on the blockchain. It's a relatively simple and straightforward process that involves using a cryptocurrency wallet, some crypto, a little bit of energy, but the cost of minting and creating NFTs can fall into a very wide range, anything from under $1 to over $1,000, right? Case in point, there was an NFT creator. He outlined how he made 4 NFTs of famous paintings that he downloaded from the Metropolitan Museum of Art for free, and then he spent over $1,300 in the minting fees. This is why it's so important to really do your research and due diligence when choosing a platform. What should people be looking for, Matthew, when selecting the platform to mint these NFTs?
I'm saying what it stands for, is really like, what is it built on? We partnered with Algorand for a lot of reasons, like Barry touched upon, and it's what they stand for. And that's what we want to represent. We want to give a opportunity for everyone, no matter where they're at in the world, that they can tap in to the NFT marketplaces of today. And if you look at our marketplace itself, for we have 10,000 plus NFTs right now in total that you can purchase from our marketplace. I mean, collectively together, our minting costs were less than $100 for the entire marketplace. And that's what we stand for, is that we want to give you something that's fair, that's easy to use, and that you can transact with right away. And so when I'm looking at marketplaces, I'm looking at, well, how much is coming out of my pocket that isn't associated with me actually obtaining the NFT itself? After I make my purchase, how much are my gas fees going to be? After I make my purchase, what's going to happen? Algorand has given us a platform to do what we stand for, which is being carbon neutral, which is being empathic and realizing that more and more people every day want to get access to NFTs. And how can we do that? We do that in a simple, easy system where you get your transaction and you get your NFT as quickly as possible without the extra fees and costs associated with it.
That makes total sense. And, of course, we all know there isn't just one miner trying to add this block to the blockchain. There are thousands of them that are huge operations running massive networks of computers in China or the Arctic or elsewhere. And they're working really diligently trying to find the solution to each puzzle. And hence, these carbon neutral NFTs make a lot of sense, because to calculate, the carbon impact of adding this block to the blockchain and all the energy expended by all the miners is counted, of course. And that's something, as like Algorand said, you want to be you want to think green these days, because people are choosing platforms very wisely. So that's a great thing. We have about a minute left, and I'm going to throw this one back to Barry. And it really has to do with NFTs being a good investment, and how is an NFT valued? Can you give us some insight on that, and maybe even talk to us about some of the most expensive NFTs that you've seen around?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually defer to Matthew to talk about the value of NFTs. And the reason is because when I look at NFTs, I think about it a little bit differently. I think what you're referring to, Xen, is more of just NFTs as they represent collectibles.
Correct.
And it is a massive use case for NFTs, but that is not what an NFT is. An NFT is really a means by which we give authentication to something. And that something does not necessarily have to be a collectible. It can be many other things, a royalty right, a person's identification, and so forth. So let me let Matthew, who runs a marketplace, address the value proposition, because I think you're referring to collectibles in particular. I could give you my own personal, but that'd be no different than you asking your grandmother what she thinks is the most expensive or the best collectible out there.
No, totally. Matt, take it away.
Of course, and I agree with that. We're diving into broadening our horizons here, but just from a collectible standpoint, I think tapping into NFTs right now from a collectible, from a digital piece of art, is that you're getting a single representation of a collective experience. You get the beyond the border, access to that NFT. Like you're getting a single representation. You're getting a piece of that whole puzzle. You're getting a piece of what the documentary stands for. You're getting a piece of who's behind it. You're getting a piece of who they're helping out, by representing this documentary. So as a collector, I'm going in and I'm able to get access to these NFTs. Well, now I feel like I'm part of the whole. I'm not just buying one piece and that's that. I get one piece and now I'm getting action. I'm getting involved in a community of collectors around the world.
Absolutely. Hence why this project, the Burkhand Worlds project, Beyond the Border, makes total sense. Well, we have run out of time, but I want to thank the two of you for coming on, because it's been a very, very interesting conversation. I learned a ton, and I know so did our listeners and viewers. Thank you both for coming on, Barry and Matthew.
Happy anytime. Look forward to being asked back.
You guys are listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WR, the Voice of New York. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure. That was Barry Finklestein and Matthew Green. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus. The time is now. Engage and earn.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, coming up, we have my dear friend, Rich Valdes. He is host of This is America with Rich Valdes, and he is the voice of Hispanic Conservatives. He was also the director of operations at Project Veritas and is a producer and regular guest host of the nationally syndicated Mark Levine Show. Today, Rich is here to chat with me about the latest in vaccine mandates and what that means for us New Yorkers. He's also going to enlighten us on what he predicts will play out between Russia and the Ukraine as Biden and Putin enter heavy discussions. More on that to come in just a bit with Rich. Now, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced what he called a first in the nation vaccine mandate for private companies earlier this week. He said the combo of the Omicron variant and holiday gatherings forced him to take bold steps, giving businesses just 3 weeks to make sure that their workers are vaccinated. The city will release specific rules on December 15th before the mandate takes effect on December 27th. Now, it will apply to in-person employees. There will also be no weekly testing options, and that's kind of a kicker. New York City previously imposed vaccine mandates for city workers, but this will be the first of its kind for the private sector, impacting 184,000 businesses. So far, 94% of municipal employees have gotten their shot. And something to note, the mandate takes effect just days before de Blasio leaves office. How coincidental. New York City is also extending the vaccine mandate for indoor dining, fitness, and entertainment to include children. Yup, they finally took the step. Children ages 5 to 11. Starting December 14th, kids in that age group will be required to show proof of at least one shot. And then, to make matters worse or more complicated, on December 27th, children ages 12 and older will need proof of both doses, except for the ones that received the J&J vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson. Now, this is all kinds of layers that they're adding to a very crippled economic state for New York City in general. And now, on another note, President Joe Biden must remain firm against Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the possibility that Russian troops, which are amassed at the Ukraine border, could launch a strike at the neighboring country is very real. I think Biden definitely needs to accomplish a lot with Putin over the next few weeks, as the U.S. needs to back Russia away from invading Ukraine. Here to break it all down for me and make it more simpler is Rich Valdes. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hey, what's going on, Zen? Welcome.
Thanks for having me. What a fiasco.
It's crazy. So Bill El Bobo de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, this is probably the further most lurch to the left that he's made in a while, because now he's saying, look, you can't test, you can't do this, you can't do that. This is truly pain compliance for everybody that's not falling in line. This is some real kind of iron-fisted hand of the government falling upon the will of the people. And not only the will of the people, but now he's going after kids, right? As young as 5 years old. You got to be 5 years old to have a Happy Meal in McDonald's. Indoor dining. I mean, this blows me away. In Spanish, we'd say, "Qué locura," what craziness. I'm at a loss for words, which is rare for me on this one, because I think this is really going to hurt Bill de Blasio. I don't know many people that have 5-year-olds that are looking to get them vaccinated. And I don't think that they're going to be as fanatical about vaccinating kids for a new variant, Omicron, that isn't even killing adults.
And, some are even raising questions. I mean, I, as a mom, have very different views because I see things from both sides. You're right. There's a lot of New Yorkers that are extremely against this vaccine. And now we even have raising questions about whether it will slow the return to Manhattan's central business district, which is crucial to the city's economy. And let me point out some specifics here. In the Bronx, with 15% unemployment, 28% of residents will no longer be able to work on December 27th, including 44% of Black young adults. And as a result of this de Blasio vaccine mandate for the private sector, you're going to have a crippling effect on the economy again. You had New York State Attorney General Letitia James, who said that she supports a vaccine mandate, but with a testing option. But this guy is dropping the hammer, no testing option. And I think this is a little bit extreme. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so I think part of what both Bill El Bobo de Blasio and Joe El Baboso Biden, I think what they both do, and I make fun of them because I think so much of what they do is silly, but they have real world impacts on our lives, is they're willing to just say the most outlandish things and create the most outlandish scenarios where they can say, well, you know what, you're not going to be able to do this, and we're not going to have a testing option. You're going to lose your job. And some people actually have. But I think all of it is, again, it's paying compliance. It's like, do what I say or I'll hurt you. And if you don't, you're going to feel the wrath. The reality, though, is I don't believe there's going to be heavy enforcement on this because I don't know how they would enforce it. I don't think this has a ton of very solid legal basis to it. I don't think that the police powers of a city can be enacted for something as simple as, we're having a public health crisis that is not really a crisis in this particular situation. It's kind of mitigated. This isn't the height of the pandemic. This, in my opinion, would be the tail end of the pandemic. So it's questionable how much authority and power the mayor is going to have if we're not in the middle of some sort of natural disaster. So I think there probably won't be a ton of enforcement because if they did, that would open them up to lawsuits, and those lawsuits would likely be lost. And I think this is just them saying as much as they can to scare everybody into doing what they want them to do.
Interesting. Well, you make valid points. What you're saying makes total sense. And, when you think about the bigger picture, there's about 62,000 small businesses in Brooklyn alone. So this is setting up problematic confrontations between employers and staff, which could result in layoffs around the holidays. That would be incredibly unfortunate. That's the last thing we need. So I think that the timing of the mayor's announcement and the failure to consult with the business community alone makes a very nervous, bad situation worse. It makes it tougher for all of us. And to go further, the mandate now means that, like you said, many young people, and myself included as a mom, we need to scramble to get that either first shot or second shot to keep eating out or participating even in after school activities. Only about 27% of New Yorkers ages 5 to 12 have taken at least one dose, and just 15% are fully vaccinated. So this is what, in a matter of a week, figure it out, chop, chop. It's a bit harsh.
Well, and that's exactly the point. And I think also the economic impact is also equally as harsh. When you mentioned those stats before, not only in Brooklyn, but in the Bronx. And it makes me think Bill de Blasio is not the only bad guy here, right? There's other boogeymen. What about AOC, all out crazy, our least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens? What about her? What is she doing to defend her district? Right? I thought that she was the defender of Black, Indigenous people of color, what they call BIPOC. Guess what? She's not saying a damn thing. She's been silent on the issue that African Americans and Hispanics are going to be losing their jobs in record numbers because of the effect that this is going to have on the Bronx. So and the city overall. When you look at the city the way it is, you have a police force that's more Black and Hispanic than anything else. You have so much of the city that is so diverse and is going to pay a high price for this. It makes you think, who's really looking out for the minorities? I don't think it's Bill de Blasio. I don't think it's AOC or Chuck Schumer. And I think the people are going to slowly realize these people, the left-leaning Democrats, are really not in our corner. And I think this isn't going to work out well for them in the long run.
I couldn't agree more. This is a bit too much too soon. Now we have about 1:50 left, and let's talk very quickly Russia. It's in the best interest, in my opinion, not only for the United States and the European Union, but for the world's best interest, for Russia to stand down and just let Ukraine pick and choose its own course. Putin is pushing back against Ukraine, potentially joining NATO, and that organization works because an attack on one nation is an attack on all. And even without Ukraine officially being part of NATO, Putin is rolling some major dice here. What do you say to this?
Well, there's a treaty that was signed a bunch of years ago when Ukraine relinquished their nuclear weapons, and the United States committed to them that both the United States, China, and the UK actually would defend them in lieu of them not having these nuclear weapons. So whether Biden says, I want to sit this one out or not, I mean, it's kind of on paper. We said, hey, we'd have your back to make sure Russia doesn't invade you. And this was, 50 years ago. So I think it's not going to be that simple, number one. Number two, you look at the actual dynamic between Biden and Putin when they were having this Zoom teleconference or Skype or whatever it was. And you have to think, man, Joe Biden couldn't even figure out how to get that going. He's waving there because he didn't know how to turn on his volume to actually have a conversation. This is not the epitome of strength that the United States wants to be depicted as. I think Putin is seeing strength. He smells blood in the water, and he's going to act on that. And it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out, because Russia is not necessarily aggressive towards the United States, but they definitely have their own goals in their region. And they'll become way more aggressive in their region if they know that the United States will do nothing, including violating our own treaty with Ukraine, who happens to be an ally.
Yeah, very interesting. That's true. I mean, look, we're out of time, but what I will end by saying is that, former President Ronald Reagan's philosophy of power with strength is still the right philosophy for dealing with Russia. But in this case, Rich, it's just not being followed. But listen, thank you for coming on. Thank you for filling in somebody else's shoes on the last moment's notice. You did a great job, and we love having you on.
Thank you. Peace through strength, trust but verify. That's what Reagan said. Thanks, Xen.
That's right. That's right. There you have it. That was the very famous Rich Valdes. Definitely check out his podcast. This is America with Rich Valdes, right here on the iHeart platform, but he's accessible pretty much everywhere. This is your host, Xen Sams. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Xen Sams. Now, coming up, we have our very famous culinary and wine segment. And this week, we are featuring returning contributor Peter Guimaraes. He's managing partner at Bice Cucina Restaurant Group and a celebrity himself. Peter continues to generate dishes not only in Midtown, but now in Soho with his second recently opened Bice location. He's coming on in just a few to discuss New York City's surviving post-pandemic restaurants, how they are the best they've ever been, and what the magic formula is. Now, tens of thousands of virus-related deaths, 2 crippling lockdowns, an exodus of residents, and the collapse of tourism and business travel have left the local restaurant industry bloodied for sure. But it's hardly been a knockout, and New Yorkers' hunger for eating out and making merry remains stronger than ever. For New York City's restaurants, the future is mostly the past, and that's a great thing. The pandemic has not changed everything. Despite outdoor seating, no contact menus, and earlier eating hours, as many predicted it would, the overlooked, underappreciated, mind-boggling, and happy truth about the city's restaurants is how little has changed. There are differences, of course, but there's no new game-changing paradigm. Yeah, hundreds of places closed for good, and we'll definitely miss them. Aqua Grill, Esca, Chinatown's Jing Fong, Brooklyn Heights' Queen, 21 Club, and so many others. But new places by the score are bravely taking the plunge to replace them. Now, the major difference between 2019 and today affects restaurant owners more than customers: the well-reported labor shortage. It's the main reason why so many restaurants that opened for dinner months ago have yet to open for lunch. There's just not enough cooks nor servers to cover both shifts. But that crisis might be on the wane. Many have already seen an uptick in job takers since federal unemployment benefits ended not long ago. Here to break it all down for us is Peter Guimaraes. Welcome back to the show, superstar.
Hello, Xen. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Now tell me, Bice Soho is your newly opened location. That's the second location. You have a very successful run in Midtown with the Bice restaurant being in the prime, optimal location where you have a whole bunch of foot traffic. You've been there for 35 years, and now you've proudly opened your second restaurant amidst the COVID pandemic. And this restaurant is a baby born out of basically the COVID era. Tell me how you went about to, put your best foot forward here and concentrate on Soho for these days.
Well, it's always challenging. I've been in this business practically my whole life, and opening up a new restaurant in a new location is always real difficult. You're the new kid on the block. You have to hire staff. You got to make sure that the food is great. But then you throw it in with the COVID issues that arose and the restrictions with the city and the mandates. It just really made it a lot more difficult. But what's sweet at the end of the day is, we're here, we're thriving. There's people in the restaurant. Fridays and Saturday nights were packed to capacity. And it's great to see that New Yorkers are back. You know, people are going to say New York was ever going to be the same. I remember being down in Miami and everybody saying, oh, New York is going to be dead. New York's never going to be dead. New York's the best city in the world. You know, this was just a hiccup for us. We're back and better than ever before.
That's right. Back and better than ever, baby. Right here in the tri-state area and right here at 710 WR, which we are the voice of New York. We always love to feature the restaurants that most New Yorkers tend to go to. And we know that the beach in Soho happens to be a beach geared more towards locals and perhaps even families that have transplanted to Soho, which is now on the uptick for families in Manhattan. There's a lot of new families, millennials populating that area. You have a lot of cool promos going on down there. Talk to me about this unique happy hour, because I know for a fact there's tons of moms in that downtown area that will love this happy hour. Talk to me about it.
So, you know, I originally had done this happy hour in Connecticut where I had a bar, and I became famous for this happy hour, and it was 50% off. The hours in Soho is probably going to be 3 to 6. Still not sure yet, maybe 4 to 6. But it's basically come and enjoy our great bottles of wines from Italy, and 50% off. So if your bill is normally $300, you only pay $150. If you're buying a $200 bottle of a Barolo, it's only going to be $100.
That's
our $34
amazing.
pasta will be half. So for people that are budget conscious, or even if you're not budget conscious and you just want to get a lot of great food for an extremely reasonable price, Beach is going to have 50% off happy hour, which nobody in the city is doing this.
Nobody in the city is doing. I know for a fact. Great. That's amazing. So happy hour. And when is that happy hour starting?
I'm probably going to start it right after the holidays, or maybe a little bit before the holidays. I'm not sure yet. Right now in Midtown, I mean, if you see the restaurant behind me, in about 2 hours, it'll be completely packed, and my bubble outside will be completely packed.
I love it.
We're concentrating a lot on Midtown, and I would like to unleash the happy hour. But, to go back to what you were saying about the labor staffing and shortage, yeah, we have to find people to come in at 3 o'clock to do this happy hour.
Oh, okay, so good. I have some questions for you though, because I only have less than 3 minutes, and I want to pick your brain on some cool stuff. I want to get through a really cool food trivia with you if we have time in the last minute, perhaps. But what's the best decision that you think you have ever made as a restaurant owner? Quick answer.
Hang in there. Negotiate with your vendors and your landlord, and just keep plugging away, because eventually the sun will rise again and you'll be stronger for it. And
that's why you've stood the test of time, for sure. Now, quickly, how do you market your restaurants? Yelp, social, word of mouth, but you need to emphasize one platform. Is it IG, Facebook? What is it for you?
It probably have to be social media and word of mouth. We don't spend a lot of money on advertising. I know it sounds a little ridiculous to say, but word of mouth and shows like yours, they're the way that people come and see us. Yes, of course. We love you. You are the only category that we promote in food and restaurant in the tri-state area, for a reason, my friend, for a reason. Now, what are your holiday plans? Are you taking a little bit of time off? So you know what? My holiday plans is always after everybody's holiday plans are finished. So until the end of the year, we're working through it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But then January 2nd, I grab Michaela and we take off. Love it. Love it. The dad in you kicks in. Okay. Fact or fiction? You can only say one. We hear that you may be rejoining the Housewives NYC cast. NDA. Okay, Peter, you're a VIP of sorts and a celebrity yourself. You attract actors, politicians, and influencers alike. What's your magic formula? I think my magic formula is just, once you come through my doors, you're part of my family. We take good care of you. It doesn't matter whether you're Brad Pitt or if you're Mr. Smith from down the street. As soon as you come in through my door, you're my VIP. You're my celebrity. You're the one that's contributed to putting food on my family's table. So we love our celebrities, but we also love our non-celebrities. And we're here for everybody. And no matter who you are, you're my family when you come through my door.
Without a doubt, I always feel like family when I dine at your restaurants, but that's because we're also really good friends. Okay, I have another really great question here. What advice do you have for aspiring New York City restaurateurs?
So you know what? Prepare for the worst. Make sure that your lease is negotiated properly. Make sure you have exit clauses. Make sure that you have a parachute clause. Make sure that you're in a great location, and make sure that you're a little bit special. You're gonna stick out from the other 20,000 restaurants in New York City. But you know, my dream was also to have a restaurant, but I also had a lot of pitfalls, and I closed many stores because I wasn't prepared. So preparation and a little bit of an exit plan. It's I know it sounds weird to say an exit plan, but trust me when I tell you, you need to be prepared.
Okay, Peter, what are the things that define you?
Uh, it would have to be my family. It'd have to be my daughter. It'd have to be my friends. Without my daughter, without my family, everything I do would just be going through the steps. But when you have your family and they're your motivating factor to provide for them and to have them to be proud of you, and you know, it's no longer just about me. I have a daughter that I love more than life itself. So everything I do now is a little extension of how I want her to see her father and to leave her something so she doesn't have to struggle.
Beautiful. Always about family. Thank you very much for coming on, Peter. It's always a pleasure having you. Now, you need to check out bchcucina.com or on IG, bchcucina.soho. Or if you want to follow Peter, go ahead. He's quite the guy, at Peter G for NYC. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
Moment of Zen is brought to you by Bice Cucina and their newest location in Soho. At Bice, you'll be dining in a relaxed and elegant atmosphere with friendly, attentive service that offers delicious dishes from Northern Italy and American cuisine. Bice caters to all dietary needs. A DJ entertains on Friday and Saturday evenings, and live upbeat jazz for Sunday brunch. Located at 15 Watt Street. Online at bchcucinasoho.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You are listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now, up in just a few, we have the Scandals segment with returning contributor Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law, right here in New York City. We're going to be covering the Jussie Smollett case and all it entails. Now, initial charges brought in February of 2019 accused the former Empire actor of faking the assault, were soon after tossed. But a year later, in February of 2020, after a special prosecutor looked into the case, a new 6-count indictment was filed. Currently, the 39-year-old Jussie Smollett charged under Illinois' disorderly conduct statute. He faces 6 counts of disorderly conduct under a subsection of the law that prohibits false reports to police. Now, some states don't categorize false reports as disorderly conduct, and that is important to note. The charges are listed as class 4 felonies, which are among the least serious felonies in Illinois, but convictions can still carry potential prison time of up to 3 years. Now, back in January of 2019, when the news broke of the alleged racist attack on the star from one of the most popular shows on TV, Empire, it riveted the public and drew our nation into a heated discussion about race, politics, and celebrity. Democrats and media figures were very quick to condemn, but what they described as a racist and homophobic attack against actor Jussie Smollett, blaming it on a culture of hate fostered by the then President Trump. But their words came back to bite them now that Jussie faces up to years in prison for what I foresee will come out to be a fabricated assault. Now, Jussie originally told police back in 2019 that 2 masked men attacked him outside his apartment at 2 a.m. in Chicago, hurled racist and homophobic slurs at him, threw chemicals on him, looped a noose around his neck, and told him that he was in MAGA country. Now, Jussie spent the night in the hospital following the incident and was released without any serious injuries. But as the investigation continued, growing skepticism about Jussie's story didn't add up, and enormous pressure on Chicago PD to get to the bottom of what really happened mounted. Now, here to break it all down for us is my superstar legal expert and analyst and Court TV host and partner at ABK Law, Imran Ansari. Welcome back, superstar.
Thanks for having me, Zen. Always great to be on with you.
What is going on here? This is bizarre, to say the least.
Absolutely. I think the Jussie Smollett case is one of the most unique and sort of scandalous cases that we've had in recent history in terms of the legal world and legal news. Not only was Jussie Smollett charged and then those charges dropped, and he was charged again and indicted again under this disorderly conduct theory of the law, or charges of the law for making the false reports to police. He's now on trial, Xen, and it's a trial that is full of twists and turns, not only with the witnesses who are testifying against Jussie Smollett, but even between the attorneys, the defense attorneys, and the judge. We know that one of the defense attorneys, Miss Walker, accused Judge Lynn of physically lunging at her during a sidebar, and that is now also something which sort of colors this case with a lot of scandal, a lot of interesting aspects, and it's going to be something that we're going to be watching both in the legal worlds and also in the entertainment Hollywood world.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up Judge Lynn, because he, to my understanding, Judge Lynn was trying to get the defense to wrap it up, telling attorneys they were getting into something that was quote unquote collateral. And then you have this Tamara Walker on Smollett's attorney. She's one of them, right? She asked for a sidebar conversation and she requested a mistrial due to this collateral comment. But did he or didn't he lunge at her? Was it her point of view? Was it really just this, distraction perhaps? Is it even valid or not? Because according to those comments, she seemed upset at the perception that the defense was being blocked from carrying out a crucial line of questioning. But I'm not really sure how that adds up.
Yes, and she was questioning one of the two brothers who were involved in this alleged setup fake assault. And while she was questioning him, she was going into certain comments and posts that he may have allegedly made in the past, which may have been homophobic or directed at homosexuals in a manner which was not very flattering. And in that way, she was getting at those questions on cross. There was objections, and the judge shut it down, said those were collateral areas that were not relevant to this case. Now we hear that they had what's known as a sidebar, which is when the jury is, excused from the courtroom, the attorneys speak with the judge. And this is something that I have never heard before, Xen, in recent history during the course of the trial, where one of the attorneys is accusing the judge of, almost lunging at her in a physically aggressive manner. I don't know what's going to happen with this, because we know the mistrial was denied by the judge, by Judge Lynn, the motion for a mistrial based on that. But we will see how that plays out down the line in terms of if there's any sort of a complaint made to the judiciary regarding that behavior, and if there's going to be an inquiry to see if that really happened.
Right. And, Jussie's lawyers have really sought to portray the brothers as false friends and opportunists who lied to police when they were caught to get out of being charged. And during their cross-examinations, defense attorney Shay Allen accused one of the brothers, Bola, of asking for a $2 million payout from the actor to not testify against him at trial, which of course he denied. And then Allen also suggested that Bola and Jussie were more than friends, right? And then you have defense attorney suggesting Bola had used knowledge that Jussie had a crush on him, including going to a gay bathhouse together where he claimed they masturbated together. But in contrast, she's also accusing the other brother, Ola, of being homophobic and questioning him about a prior felony conviction and several weapons that were found at the family's house. So, is the credibility of these brothers viable? I don't know. But the timeline of the fact that they had been hired as extras on the film set of Empire and had a relationship that was ongoing with Jussie, something smells fishy.
Yes, and what the defense team were trying to do with these witnesses, which are really the key witnesses for the prosecution in this case, because they were integral into this alleged fake assault. They were, really assisted Jussie Smollett in making this thing happen. So they're really key witnesses. And what the defense had to do or tried to do was attack their credibility. And that's what we've seen happening in court, because this is a unique situation where the credibility of Jussie Smollett is really on trial here, because it is disorderly conduct charges, which are in the sort of context of making false reports. Basically, to boil it down, is Jussie Smollett guilty of lying, making up this whole assault, and causing the state of Illinois to really expend a lot of time, money, and effort in chasing a false claim. So credibility, both of the witnesses and of the defendant, are really important here.
Agreed. And, the question is, and really the only narrative that has come to the jury so far is from the siblings, right? These two brothers. And the only chance I think Jussie has of beating these charges, if he does have a chance of beating them, is by really telling the jurors his version of what happened. And as to the importance of a defendant testifying, one need look no further than the recent trial in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges after he testified that he fatally shot two men and wounded another because he feared for his own life. They won the case by putting him on. The jury believed him. But in this case, is it too risky for Jussie?
So Xen, it's really you have two forks in the road, right? And both of them may lead to disaster in this case, in terms of having Jussie Smollett testify, because again, this is really about Jussie Smollett's credibility. You put him on the stand, and the prosecution are going to go at him like no other. They're going to be, really looking to attack him on cross-examination and show that he can't be trusted, that he's not credible, and that's why the jury should find him guilty of the charges. But then on the other hand, the defense also has a problem, because they have all these the stories coming out from these brothers, from the other prosecution witnesses, and without Jussie Smollett getting on the stand and explaining those testimonies away and giving his version of what happened, they're really left with a hard case to put forward before that jury in terms of the defense. So
Agreed.
It's really, Jussie Smollett, if he testifies, it can hurt him. But then again, if he doesn't testify, it can hurt him.
It could hurt him, right? But testifying, you're right, could pose all kinds of problems for Jussie, starting with the need to explain how the brothers knew they would run into him in the dead of a brutally cold night in an unfamiliar neighborhood as he returned from a sandwich shop, as he claimed, unless he told them he was there, right? So also, if he's convicted, Jussie Smollett's words could land him in yet more trouble, because he could be penalized by a judge for not testifying. But if he takes the stand and the judge believes he perjured himself, he can add, of course, jail or prison time. So I think Smollett's going to end up testifying, and even if his attorneys beg him not to, he's going to do it, because we've got a guy who is so arrogant and self-centered that he thinks that he can make people believe what he says is true and schmooze the jury to get them to like him. And this is in Hollywood. It's just not going to happen. People could see right through this story.
Yeah, Xen, it's really one that leaves you scratching your head, because Jussie Smollett, he wasn't someone who was totally unknown. I mean, he had a role in Empire, and he had an acting career that could have grown. And you sort of question why, if this was a fake assault, right, as the allegations of the prosecution have it.
Right.
If that's true, then why would you do it? Why
Well,
would you expose yourself to this? Because now, if his career, think about it,
It's
his
over.
career may really be hurting, especially if
Over.
he's convicted.
He will never work again in Hollywood, ever. He will never work again, because this is a fabricated, it's way too close to home, and it's touched on way too many raw emotions, given where our society has gone in the last couple of years. And put it this way, if jurors convict Smollett, his lack of criminal history and the fact that no one was seriously hurt, make actual time behind bars unlikely, in my opinion. It's more likely that a judge would sentence him to probation and perhaps order him to perform community service, because it seems more like, that's where it would go and where they're going to negotiate. But this is a big Hollywood play out, a big Hollywood brouhaha. And at the end of the day, if you are this much of an accomplished actor, where you're making like $2 million a year on the number one rated show in America, Empire, and that's not enough attention for you, then he definitely needs to seek professional help and counseling, because clearly they all knew each other. So this wasn't a hate crime coming out of left field.
Right, so you got all the moving parts here to make this a real sort of Hollywood drama. So it's really Hollywood playing out in the courtroom, because you got race, you got politics, You have homophobia, all these little really salacious, sort of scandalous talking points going out in that courtroom through these testimonies, through these witnesses. And we'll wait and see. You know, Jussie Smollett, maybe this is his chance to really put himself in the spotlight, not behind the camera, but on the stand in court. And we'll wait to see if he testifies.
Yeah, the one big, great monologue. Can't wait to see that one play out. Listen, Imran, we're out of time, but it was such a pleasure chatting with you. I always love covering the scandal segment with my one and only.
Thank you, Zen. Always great to be on with you.
Absolutely. You guys are listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. That was Imran Ansari, partner at ABK Law, legal expert and analyst, and our returning contributor for the scandal segment. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Aikido Pharma, an early-stage pharmaceutical company developing innovative drugs for improving anti-cancer and antiviral therapies. Traded on the NASDAQ under ticker AIKI. They have first-in-class partnerships with leading medical universities like the University of Maryland and the University of Texas. To learn more, go to www.aikidopharma.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. or go to 710wr.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen. Remember, we're now on TV. Download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android, or tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen live on the Impact Channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Remember to tune back in next Saturday night. Thanks again, of course, to all of our sponsors. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.